The hosts feel it would be a little unkind to present this podcast without just a word of friendly warning. We are about to unfold the story of Frankenstein, a man of science who sought to create a man after his own image without reckoning upon God. It is one of the strangest tales ever told. It deals with the two great mysteries of creation, life and death. I think it will thrill you. It may shock you. It might even horrify you. So if any of you feel that you do not care to subject your nerves to such a strain, now's your chance to. Well, we've warned you.
Hello and welcome once again to the Frankencast. I'm the mad scientist, Anthony Bowman. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm joined as always by...
the monster that looks suspiciously like you at the end of the movie. That is Eric Velasquez. My pronouns are also he, him. Do you think I gave away the plot? I mean, really not, right? But kinda.
Yeah, like when the twist happens at the end, it's kind of like, yeah, we knew that's where this was going. Yeah.
Yeah, gee, there's a suspicious bust that just keeps popping up, and it looks suspiciously like Victor here. So yeah. I wonder if that's going to have something to do with anything in the end. It does.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so as you said, Victor, I guess we first off should say Karloff's back, baby.
Yeah, Karloff's back, baby. Love it.
Yeah, so this is Frankenstein 1970. This is, Karloff, moving on again to the mad scientist. I know he did that once in the Universal run, but here he's actually Victor Frankenstein. But although he's the descendant of the original Victor Frankenstein, right? It's not.
No, he's But wait a second. It's called Frankenstein 1970. But didn't the movie come out in 1958, or is that did I read that wrong?
Yeah, no, it's in the far future of 1970.
1970. Oof. Fair enough. Yeah, I was like, yeah, man, this movie looks like it could have been made in the 30s. In a good way. Yeah, I was like, isn't Karloff deceased by a couple years in 1970?
Yeah.
All right, but yeah, we do got Boris Karloff. He is Baron Victor von Frankenstein, so he's OG. Mm-hmm. And then we got Don Barry as Douglas Rowe, he's an interesting character. Jana Lund playing Carolyn Hayes, who's kind of the damsel in distress.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Charlotte Austin is Judy Stevens. Poor Judy. She does not get a fair shake in this at all.
Yeah.
Then we've got Rudolf Anders as Wilhelm Gottfried. Say that 10 times fast. And John Dennis as Morgan Haley. Then, of course, we've got Norbert Schiller as Shooter, which, hell of a name. Shoot her.
Yeah.
And last but not least, for some reason we decided to have a character named Hans Himmler. Why do we have a character named Himmler, Anthony?
Yeah, that was an interesting choice.
This is, 13 years after the end of World War II?
Yeah.
All right.
And he's like a minor character as Hans Himmler, and then he's also the creature, right? So, that's a strange... Yeah, I don't know why, this minor character did not need to have that name unless this was going to be a movie about Nazi stuff. It's an odd choice.
Well, to a degree, it kind of is, right? At least there's references to this Frankenstein enduring some things possibly Nazi-related, more than likely Nazi-related.
We also, you didn't mention, we've got, playing Mike Shaw, there's Tom Duggan. And I didn't know much about him, but, I looked him up because he, kind of looked familiar, and he was, a really well-respected, investigative journalist who just on the side did a couple acting roles. He apparently was on the mob's hit list because he had exposed some of their stuff. He was a serious journalist.
Right.
And then also is in this silly Frankenstein movie.
Because why not?
Yeah.
I mean, and Mike's a fairly He's a pretty important character too.
Yeah, and it's really strange though, because like I never really quite. I mean, we'll get into it, but like I never really. I don't know what Mike's role in the film is.
That's fair.
Because like at first I thought he was the writer, but I'm not really sure if that's.
He's almost the publicist.
Okay.
But then again, I feel like everybody does writing duty in this because Judy writes, and Douglas Rowe writes.
Yeah.
And I think we do have a dedicated writer, but it's not Morgan. And I honestly couldn't tell you who else it would have been. Maybe Mike. Maybe he's also a writer and a publicist. Because that's what he does. He calls around and is like, hey, we're coming into town. Get some people together.
I always calling the newspaper and telling him, I guess we'll get to that. And I guess we kind of spoiled the big sort of exciting thing at the beginning, because like the movie starts off and it's like intense. Like we get credits just over like a shot of a foggy lake, but then like as soon as the credits end, we've got a woman that's running in terror. We've got a monster chasing her. It's kind of like shambling and like.
But he's more twisted than a normal Frankenstein, right? Like the hands are twisted, almost Wolfman-like.
Yeah, and you never see his face. Like he's kind of hunched over and his hands are gnarled, but the camera stays really low. So it's like, what is this thing? Like, what we have no idea.
And it's like, like you said, we're already off to the races, baby. Like, are we gonna get the story? Like, are we gonna be like record scratch? You wonder how I got here, huh?
Right. And and then ultimately, like he chases her to the lake that we saw in the credits, and she's stuck. Like she has nowhere to go, so she just like runs into the water.
Yeah, but also there's a really quick, easy fix to her problem that she did not do. It's called swimming. She just stood there in the water while the creature lumbers up on her and chokes her out. And wait a second, did I just hear cut? This is a movie in a movie. How dare you?
Yeah. And it's kind of like, and then they kind of like double trick you because the creature's holding her underwater. We hear cut, and like then we see the film crew, and then we cut back, and the monster's still holding her underwater, and it's like, wait, what is he? Is he not gonna let her up? And then they're like, oh yeah, he's a German actor, he didn't understand. And the director's like, hey, interpreter, tell him to let her up, and then he does.
Yeah.
So he's our aforementioned Hans Himmler,
right? Who, from what I understand, is a pretty passive guy. Like, he's like, whatever. Just obviously he doesn't speak English, whereas most of the cast does.
Yeah.
Which it seems like that's a bit of an oversight. I mean, I'm glad they got an interpreter, but I feel like you could do more there.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I know especially back then that wasn't uncommon where they would just like have somebody either they dub them over later and they'd be doing their lines in two different languages, or they would like teach them phonetically how to do stuff.
Right, exactly.
Which would lead to some like really weird accents and stuff, but
man.
Yeah.
Like, have you ever seen Hercules in New York?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, literally Arnold Schwarzenegger's very first movie where he literally played the god Hercules. That came to New York in modern day. Okay. But because he was so fresh to America, his accent wasn't so great, so they dubbed him with like some just middle of the road schmuck. So like it's almost like all the rest of the cast, they're not dubbed. It's only Arnold Schwarzenegger, and but like you could still see his lips move after he's already said a few words. It's amazing. You should check it out.
Yeah, that sounds entertaining.
Yeah. Honestly, if you'd saw that, you'd be like, this guy's not, he's not cut out for Hollywood. He's going nowhere.
Straight to the governor's mansion.
Yeah, well, it's worked for at least two actors.
Right, yeah. But yeah, so we find out that all this monster chasing stuff was a film that's being made. And then the director's like, all right, well, that's a wrap on this set. We're going to head back to shoot some more at the castle.
Right.
And so we kind of find out, like, it's one of those deals, like, they're filming on in a real castle on location. And it just happens to be Castle Frankenstein.
Yeah, we also get a little bit of interesting information in that Roe and Judy, they were married. And they still kind of have a thing for each other. Even though he's on, wife 4 and almost maybe 5? Maybe,
yeah, like they kind of are joking about like the lead actress could possibly be wife number 5.
Right, and he's all about that.
Yeah.
So it's like they're still in a relationship, but it's also kind of open for
right.
him, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely feels like he's just, going through the wives, and she still wants to fix things, and he's kind of ready to like move on, but he's also kind of stringing her along because she works for him and she's helpful, and he kind of needs her around.
Yeah, exactly. Really weird relationship, but it's interesting to see this in 1958, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, well, it turns out, so our lead actress, Carolyn, so she just came from a gig where she was scalped, presumably by Native Americans, because this is 1958 and we can't be progressive. Also boiled and eaten by the Donner Party, which I would have loved to see that movie, okay? Where's that one at?
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're also celebrating the 230th anniversary of Frankenstein, which that would make sense if this was 1958.
Right.
Where did 1970 come from? Where?
I think it does lie. There's like there's like a plaque that we'll see later, and the dates on that match up to 1970 if you like math it back. But yeah, they're putting a lot of numbers in this that don't need to be there, just to complicate things. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so it sounds like she's like basically an old school scream queen. Like she's just like I'm getting like murdered in like different ways in every movie I'm in. Like
she's literally the prototypical scream queen.
Yeah, but it pays the bills, so it's fine.
Fair enough, Listen, if we didn't have scream queens, we probably wouldn't be here, okay?
Right, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then we cut to the castle, and we've got Karloff as Victor Frankenstein, and he's complaining to his friend Gottfried that like this film crew is basically wrecking his life. Like they're in his house, they're messing stuff up. Like he doesn't know why he agreed to let them film.
Yeah, but Gottfried's like, because they paid your bills, my man. They gave you money. You gave them services. That's
capitalism.
Baby.
Yeah. And specifically, Victor he's saving up for a nuclear reactor for a project he's working on.
As you do. Just a small nuclear reactor,
So this is definitely a movie made in the 50s when everyone was obsessed with nuclear stuff.
Yeah, when we didn't understand. I mean, honestly, it's not bad energy. It's just that we're idiots. You shouldn't trust us with anything like that.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he even mentions like he had to do this because he's already sold off most of his family's art collection. That like this is generation. It's generational wealth, and he's just been like dwindling it to work on his
for science.
Yeah, exactly.
And not only that, but Gottfried, I love Gottfried. He's a great character because he calls out Victor's bullshit. He's like, Victor, you are a true Frankenstein. You're complaining all the damn time.
Right.
Well, point, he's not exactly because he's not fainting while he's complaining.
True, yeah. There's no fainting in this really at all, I don't think. But then that's when, like you said, he reveals that, and it's pretty subtle. Like at first I was like, does he mean what I think he means? And yeah, for sure, he was tortured and disfigured by the Nazis for not cooperating with them during the war.
Right, possibly mutilated in certain ways because he's like, I'm not sure I'm a man anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Well. And basically, he's got scars on his face and everything, and it's pretty much they didn't touch his hands because he's like a brilliant surgeon. And they basically, it sounds like they wanted him to be like a Mengele for them.
Right. Well, he just wasn't going to have it.
And so they never hurt his hands because they kept hoping maybe they'd force him into it, and he never cooperated.
Right. And he even makes it a point. He's like honestly, you would think that Gottfried's maybe in his 40s, 50s. Honestly, for this time frame, probably 30s.
Right,
Who knows? Because people age weirdly in the past or in the future. I don't know. But he's like, who would have imagined that you and I were the exact same age? Dun, dun, dun. And this is elder Karloff, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's like that took that much of a toll on him that it aged him prematurely aged him.
Mm-hmm. And Gottfried is like, I don't know why you don't just like sign up to work for the government here. That would be a consistent source of income, and like that they could definitely use you. And he's like, I don't have time for that. I feel like with the way I'm sort of rapidly, decaying from all the damage done to my body, like I could die any day, and I'm the last of the House of Frankenstein, so it's important, so again, this is really telegraphing the ending where he's very concerned about his legacy, and that seems to be focused on like this project, this scientific work that he's working on.
Yeah, and this is the first time he mentions the Inquisitive Commandant. Did I ever tell you, Gottfried, what happened to the Inquisitive Commandant? As kind of a threat to basically say, shut it. You're asking too many questions. You're saying too much. It's time for you to move on past this.
And that'll keep coming up, and every time it gets a little bit more intense of a threat.
Yeah, and it's a good one too, though, because it's like, oh, the Inquisitive Commandant. That something bad happened to this guy because he asked too many questions. What could this be? Well, we'll find out. But we won't find that out before Roe and company just bust in, causing all kinds of, just screaming out all kinds of stuff like, Harry, let's go over here, and, we're going to do some shooting back here. And, just annoying Victor to no end.
Yeah. But Roe does say the reactor is supposed to arrive in a few days, so you've got that to look forward to. So apparently he's not paying Victor so that he can buy a reactor. He's paying Victor with a reactor.
I mean, fair, right?
Yeah. Hollywood director, he's just got reactor connections, I guess.
Yeah.
It's like, I got a guy. I'll get you.
Yeah, I know a guy. We did some shooting down in Chernobyl. It's fine.
But yeah, he's like, in the meantime, I really want to I want to get you in the film as like an introductory scene. You can talk about your family history, and then kind of like the rest of the cast and crew of the movie are kind of joking like, oh yeah, you'll end up being more famous than us, like you'll become a star, you'll get your own show out of the deal and everything.
Yeah, exactly. He's going to be a TV star, dun dun dun. Which, there was only one period in time that I think that was a real big thing, and in 1970, I think we were a little bit past that. I may be wrong. We also are introduced to Shooter, as we mentioned earlier. Who,
the butler.
Right, exactly. And they're like, make us a drink, Shooter. So make us a shooter.
Right. And then we get like Victor sort of like creepily hitting on Carolyn, the leading lady.
Yeah.
And it's real, like, the age difference there is pretty drastic, and it's just, it's gross.
Maybe it's less than we think, though, because he's supposed to be younger, just less older, and he's hunched.
That's true.
But also, she's probably no more than 20, so it's probably still a good age gap.
Yeah. And she's kind of like a little bit uncomfortable, but like trying to not be too obvious about it.
Well, not only that, but Rose's like, and we're going to divert your attention because this one's mine. So, Frank, what do you think, buddy? Yeah,
and then he's like, actually, now that I think about it, you may be the solution to all my problems.
Telegraph that one, Victor.
Yeah, I wrote evil laugh in my notes. Like, it's such an evil laugh.
But he literally walks off just to play the organ. It's like, let's make it more creepy. Let's go.
Yeah. He plays the organ several times, and they even start talking about how it's creepy. Like, it's... But then we kind of cut away to, like, they're down in this sort of... We'll find out as, like, the sort of Frankenstein family crypt or vault or whatever. And there's a big plaque on the wall that tells, like, the history of the original Victor Frankenstein and his, like, making of a monster.
Yeah, and it's almost like a whole book.
Yeah, it's a long-ass plaque.
Right. Like, 17 years. It took him 17 years before he created a living man. Really? 17. Victor Frankenstein that we read in that book, that was 17 years? So you're telling me he started fainting when he was like, what, 34 years old?
And Elizabeth's just like chilling, waiting on him 34? To get back?
No way. No way she's waiting that long.
Right. But like, and this is a great bit for Karloff, because like he's reading this plaque out loud for the camera, and he's just like chewing the scenery. He's like super intense about it. Like, I was like, man, Karloff has still got it. He's so good at that. Like,
literally, if there was a Karloff impersonator, or even, it's a shame that we didn't have like a horror series. I think maybe there might have been like a couple episodes where there was, or a couple shows where Karloff was a horror host, but like only for bit parts.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like if he had his own horror show, that thing would have taken off.
Oh yeah, that would have been fantastic. Like a Hitchcock Presents kind of thing,
right,
but with
like that, or Twilight Zone or whatever, presented by Boris Karloff.
Yeah, I would be so down for that. so like after he reads the plaque, he kind of keeps talking, and he walks over, and there's like a slab with a sheet on it, and the sheet is obviously moving because the person under it is breathing. Like it is very clear.
No, not at all. But no, but yeah. So apparently he also the creature was buried in a stone sarcophagus, and they made it sound like it was sealed away with a magic book.
Yeah.
But the parts were also stripped out after that happened. But yes, going back to the sheet, clearly there's someone breathing underneath. But you know what? The Baron ain't got no time for that, so he's going to whip out his knife and stab it.
Right. Yeah, like it's supposed to be that the original creature is under there and that he doesn't want it to come back, so he's gonna finish the job, you know. But as he raises the knife, I guess he was doing such a great job at his acting that he scared Carolyn off camera, and she just screams.
Right, which is weird. It's like just all of a sudden ear-piercing scream, and everyone's like, "Excuse me?" And Carolyn's like, "Oh, I just thought that was real. Yeah. I got too into it." Okay, well, cool.
So yeah, they have to call cut, and then that's when, as you kind of hinted earlier, the Himmler is like a very kind of passive, like calm dude, and he's like, "This is too creepy. Like I'm not down for this. I quit." Mm-hmm. And they're like, "Oh, now we got to find a new creature, and it's gonna be a whole big problem." So
well, it turns out that Rose like, "Hey, Baron, you picked up those lines pretty good, man. Good job." And then he walks off with Judy, and she's like, "You didn't write any of those lines at the end." And he's like, "I know, but they were pretty good, right?"
Yeah.
That's very much what you kind of expect a lot of directors to do.
Right. And so then we cut to that night, and everybody's kind of like gathered around in the living room. And like you said, Mike is doing his promotional stuff. He's on the phone talking to like newspapers. And it's like one of those sort of like William Castle kind of things where he's like promoting them. He's like, we're going to have a party, and there's going to be like actual real monsters here. There's going to be some goblins. You should come down. And yeah, seriously, I'm talking about real goblins. They're going to be
running wild all over the place. They're those international goblins. What exactly did he say about that part? It kind of alluded to they were going to be kind of wild and scantily dressed. So I guess he means young ladies.
I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. Some goblins that'll actually kill you. You know, like you said, very William Castle.
Yeah. And then we also get this little brief moment where Carolyn gives Shooter, the butler, a scarf.
Yeah. It's a very kind thing for her to do. And like she's just kind of like, "Hey, I thought you would look nice in a scarf, so I got it for you." And
he's really, really touched. You know, like you can tell like he's visibly moved by it, and he's like putting it on. He's very proud of this new item that he's got.
Yeah, but the Baron ain't having that. He's like, "No, I don't like this."
Yeah, like so his creepy flirting earlier, like he's definitely got his eye on Carolyn as well. Mm-hmm. So yeah, not liking his butler getting more attention than him.
Yeah, he even calls it out. He's like, "Hey, Shooter, nice scarf you got there for Miss Hayes. She must really like you, huh?" And of course, you know, Shooter's smiling like an idiot because he got a gift from a pretty lady and a kiss. So, you know, whatever.
Yeah. And Rose not too down with this either. And he's like, Carolyn, let's go up to your room. We're going to go over your lines for tomorrow.
Well, that could also be just him trying to get her upstairs.
Yeah. I think that's he's going to show everybody there who's got, you know, Carolyn wrapped around his finger.
Right.
And Judy is not happy about that. So like it's just like this cascade of like people making each other mad.
Right. Even at that point, isn't Mike like, "Hey, Judy, this will be fine. You know, we can hang out or something."
Yeah. He tries to get her upstairs, and she's not really interested in that either.
Right. So we got the train of disappointment.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a love figure 8 or something.
Right.
It's a complicated shape going on here.
Yeah, but then we have the Baron and Gottfried basically left by themselves, and Gottfried's kind of like, "Yeah, man, it's kind of weird how fast and, you know, how much is changing since everyone's gotten here. How you're changing."
Yeah, he's like, "I heard a rumor that you've been talking to the morgue director. You're up to something."
Right. Surely you're not getting, well, he doesn't say, come right out and say you're getting corpses, but that's what he's alluding to.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. But of course we get the threat. Let me tell you about that story about that inquisitive commandant. Something really bad happened to him. You know,
yeah.
Just stepping it up one further step.
Yep. And so, again, Gottfried is like, okay, fine. He leaves. And then Victor goes down back to the crypt area. And then in the corner, there's like a statue. He turns its head, which causes like a tomb, like a sarcophagus kind of tomb thing to open up. And there's a staircase leading down into a, deeper basement.
Right, the sub basement.
Yeah. So, of course, that's where Victor's, secret mad science lab is.
Right. So he goes in, flips on a light, and I almost shit myself, Anthony. I saw a big round shape, and I'm like, that is the biggest fucking dynamo I've ever seen. No, it wasn't. It was just an MRI machine, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, arguably, possibly kind of a dynamo/science wheel. But, man, I was really excited for a second.
Yeah, they definitely went more like for the high-tech computer-y kind of science lab here. It's less like electrical stuff.
Yeah, more, electrical, but in a more digital sense, right? Not
yeah. Less lightning bolts, obviously more nuclear energy, so that's where we're going.
Yeah, so Frankenstein goes in and starts flipping all those switches because, of course he does.
There's this bit here, and I didn't understand what was happening until much later in the movie. I finally figured out what was going on, because it was like it shows him flipping switches, and then we just get a couple shots of like everybody upstairs in their individual bedrooms, kind of getting ready for bed, and it eventually will be clearer that he's listening in. He's got listening devices, and he's checking in to see what everybody's up to before he like really gets down to work.
Right. He basically wants a heads up on what everybody's doing when they're doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But also, there's this weird bust that's in the middle of the room, Anthony.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a clay sculpt that is obviously a young Boris Karloff.
Mm-hmm.
With
headshot. Like the actual like Polaroid headshot.
And it's like literally just like Karloff's acting headshot. It's not like they did not like take a photograph of Karloff for this. Mm-hmm. And so it's like he's got this it's Victor looking at a picture of him pre-torture, and he's like making a sculpture of himself, and he's trying to get it just right.
Right.
And then we also there's this big weird chamber, this like Star Trek kind of door, and he opens it up, and like a gurney rolls out that's got a fully bandaged creature laying down on it.
And it's a pretty good sized creature.
Yeah. And the really kind of cool, weird thing about this one is from the neck down is fully wrapped in bandages, but the head is just a bare skull.
A plastic skull, giant plastic skull.
Yeah. But it's an interesting look. Like, it's just like, man, it'd be really cool if they woke the monster up like that and we got this weird skull monster walking around for a little while.
How cool would that be?
Yeah.
We don't get that.
No.
But yeah, so we also have Frankenstein cleaning up. He does some washing, so this is a very modern Frankenstein to do his science.
Yeah, and it's like how like autopsies are done now. Like his setup, he's got like a microphone hanging down from the ceiling and like a reel-to-reel tape.
Well, actually, what was that? Guillermo del Toro's Cabinet of Curiosities. What was that episode called? The Autopsy?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite literally a bit like that, except it's a way cleaner.
Mm-hmm. And so he's kind of just like dictating notes as he's working on the creature, and basically he says like the whole thing here is that he's combined real and synthetic skin, and he's seeing how it's like healed together. He's about ready to start installing the vital organs, which those cannot be synthetic. They're going to have to come
from a donor.
People. Yeah.
Well, not only that, but he's treated he stripped the flesh from the skull, and presumably the other bones as well, and treated them with something that made them a little bit more harder, crystalline, he calls them.
Yeah.
So this is a tough synthetic creature.
And then while he's doing that, we cut back to, the crypt area, and there's Shooter. He's kind of straightening up, since the crew had been filming down there, and he's kind of proudly adjusting his scarf while he's working, and then he stumbles upon the secret staircase.
Right, which makes you wonder why he hasn't done that before. Presumably this guy has worked here for a while.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that made sense to me was that, like, he may not mess with stuff in the vault very often, but he did this time because the crew had been filming and he thought it needed to be tidied up.
It's quite possible. We'll go with that.
But yeah, regardless, he's like, oh, what's this? And he, goes down there and finds Victor, like, in the dark, and he's, like, very frightened, clearly. Like, he's like, what is what's going on, Victor? You know, like
right. Well, and Victor's even more creepy here. He's like, why did it have to be you, Shooter, of all people, that discovered me? And he's like, and that Shooter's like, please don't kill me. And the bear's like, I'm gonna have to kill you, Shooter. He just tells him, you're gonna have to die on this one, buddy.
Yeah, and it's so weird because he's like, I'm sorry, it's the way it's got to be. Come a little closer, and Shooter does. Like, he's not just like, I'm getting the fuck out of here.
Well, I mean, Shooter is obedient, to a fault. But yeah, I mean, like me, I'm scramming. Like I could easily outpace this guy, you know.
Yeah.
But he literally like brings him closer, and this Frankenstein also has. He has the power of science and hypnotism on his side.
Yeah, so he like pulls out a pair of like surgical scissors and is like kind of wiggling them around so that like flash the light in Shooter's eyes, and he's basically like, I'm doing you a favor.
Right.
You're gonna live on forever in this creature.
Right. You'll bring glory to the house of Frankenstein. No more pain. No more suffering.
Yeah.
I don't think Shooter was suffering or in pain before.
No. But the hypnotism's working, and so then we just kind of like cut to a little later, and he's already transplanted most of the organs into the creature's body and is getting ready to do the heart. And he's like removing the heart, and he's doing like the heart massage, keeping it beating as he carries it across the room.
That's a nice touch. That's because it looks like a almost beating heart. Probably there's a pump inside of it, but he is also kind of giving a little bit of a massage.
Yeah. And so, he puts in the heart, and then we cut to, like, the next morning. Carolyn is making breakfast, and, like, Judy comes in, and she's like, if you're making breakfast for Ro, don't even bother. He only really has orange juice in the morning.
Right, and Carolyn's like, well, I'm not doing that, but Shooter's just not here. So I figured I was hungry, so I'm making it for everybody.
She's just like, make breakfast for everybody. Victor appears then and is like, Shooter, he went away to visit family, so it was sudden, but he'll be back eventually, but he's going to be gone for a little bit.
Yeah, in the meantime, I've got this new guy he's just Hans.
Yeah. Carolyn was like, well, I was up anyway because your equipment arrived and they woke me up. So obviously Victor is very excited about the arrival of his new equipment.
Right. Then I believe we actually do cut to Victor. It looks like he's like trepanating the skull. I guess maybe he is, but he's putting the brain in at that point. Like he didn't even wait. He's like, we're slapping this bad boy in as soon as we get the equipment.
Yeah. So it's he's at this point. He's got everything installed except for the eyes. That's the last thing he needs.
So that's obviously the weakness of the monster.
Right. So he goes to the fridge, gets out his jar of eyeballs, and then Butterfingers
no
drops the jar, and he's like, oh man, now I gotta get a new set of eyes.
So he pulled the Igor gag before Igor did.
Right.
It's amazing.
So then we cut to like later on, and again, Victor's just playing creepy organ music, and Carolyn like comes in and she's like, or I think he says like, it seems like you're avoiding me or something, and she's like, no, I'm just avoiding your music because organ music is creepy and it reminds me of death.
I mean, is she wrong?
No.
Exactly.
But it's funny because, like, horror movies always kind of just lean into the trope of creepy organ music, but they never say that it's creepy, and so I just like a character in the movie being like, no, that's creepy.
Yeah. Yeah. But it looks like Miss Hayes had found Shooter's scarf somewhere, and she does want to save it for him in case he comes back, but that's when Victor is like, oh, yeah, I'll keep this for you, and he slaps it around his own neck.
Yeah, I think he says like, oh, Shooter's gonna be gone a while, you all might be gone already, so I'll send it to him.
Yeah.
But then he puts it on while he's like looking at her, which is super creepy.
Right. And she's like, yep, I'm out. She walks off. Gottfried's like, hey, Victor, that's kind of weird, man, that you would say that, because I know that Shooter doesn't have family, and I know that you know Shooter doesn't have family.
Yeah.
So,
and I happened to peek in on Shooter's room, and all his clothes and all his stuff's still there, so what's up?
So let me tell you this story about this Inquisitive Commandant there, Gottfried. Turns off, he always asked all these questions, and then one day he turned up without a tongue. Isn't that weird?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. Do you get the thread I'm making?
And he's like, yeah, you know, when they found him, they brought him to me because I was the surgeon to see what had happened, and so I got to take a look at the injury myself, and that was a beautiful piece of surgery, if I do say so myself.
Whatever could that mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And this is when he also kind of drifts off into a memory. He like stares off into the middle distance.
Yeah, and Gottfried's like backing away slowly, like, all right, I get the hint. I'm getting the fuck out of here.
Apparently not hard enough.
Yeah.
All right.
And so then we cut back to Victor down in the lab, and you know, now we're getting into it. He's wearing the mad scientist goggles. He's cranking up the reactor.
But you know, this is the safest Victor we've ever seen because he's wearing a lead apron.
Yeah. Like this for like the 50s being obsessed and kind of confused about nuclear stuff. This does handle it pretty realistically as far as like the dangers.
Right. Not about the consequences. Definitely the danger.
Yeah. And so, yeah, as the reactor's going upstairs, lights are kind of like dimming and brightening, which if this is a separate reactor that's not connected to the house's power grid, I don't know how the reactor would cause issues with the lights upstairs.
But counterpoint, why the hell would you connect a nuclear reactor to your own power? I guess it makes sense. You're going to save money, right?
Right, yeah, that's true.
But damn.
Yeah. But yeah, so, you know, he's really like blasting the creature with nuclear energy, and then he takes the creature out, but then he hears on his, you know, listening device that we mentioned earlier, he hears some voices.
Yeah, it turns out that Ro and Carolyn are, they're having a little bit of an argument.
Yeah, he's trying to get into her room, and she's telling him to leave.
Right. Get out of here, it's too late. People ask questions.
Yeah, and so that pretty much, you know, obviously marks Ro for, for death as far as Victor's concerned. Mm-hmm. And then we see, like, there's a heartbeat on the monitor, so the creature is waking up.
Right. And then we get Baron actually propping up the monster, and he just calls it, hey, shooter, wake up. Wake up, shooter.
Yeah. And this is like, you know, usually it seems like the creature, when it wakes up, it's like its own thing. It doesn't really seem to have a tie to the brain that it came from. But here, it's like Shooter is responding. It's Shooter. Mm-hmm. And, you know, he sees brain activity on his scanner, and, you know, he's like, all right, raise your right arm, raise your left arm.
Yeah. But he has all of that. To a polygraph. It looked like, not necessarily a brain scanner, but polygraph, but who knows? At the time, it may have been the exact same thing.
Yeah. And so he's like, all right, so you're in good shape, but we still need to get you some new eyes. Mm-hmm. So I know you're blind now, but I'm working on it.
Right, exactly. And that's when we then cut to Judy and Mike. Mike wants to come into Judy's room this time, and he's brought some glasses and some whiskey, presumably.
Yeah. And yeah, Judy's up late because she is typing up the revisions for the script for tomorrow.
Right, just a little romantic stuff, right? Just some dialogue. What is it?
Yeah.
They put each other's lips together, and what was it that she said? Not fireworks, but you get the drift. Basically, two characters are kissing, amazing stuff happens. And then Mike is like, well, I mean, that could be us, right? You know, that could be us.
Yeah. And she's kind of like, maybe so. Maybe, like, this, for a brief moment, she's kind of like, I'm willing to give this a shot. And he kisses her, and it's like just...
toothpaste.
Yeah.
Two lips to touch toothpaste. Fair enough.
Yeah, so clearly she's not into it. Yeah. And she's like, no, I'm still just too hung up on Ro.
Right.
And, you know, she's like, maybe that'll change somewhere down the road and we could try this. But like right now, my head's just not in it because I'm just so focused on him.
Exactly. And so she's like, you got to go. But of course, he's like, fine. Apparently, he somehow had a drink or two in between that time that we didn't see because he leaves, walks out, and then comes back and is like, hey, you forgot to give me something. You forgot to kiss me. And she's like, mwah, bye. And then she doesn't even open the door.
Yeah.
It's like, get out of here.
Yeah, so now he's just like this, drunk jerk on the other side of a door, like harassing her, and she keeps telling him to go away. So like he is just yelling at her through the door. He's not like trying to force the door open, but then suddenly someone is trying to force the door open, like the knobs rattling and shaking and stuff. And so she's like, "All right, I'm not putting up with that, Mike." So she like swings the door open to tell him to go away and leave her door alone.
Surprise! It ain't Mike. It's Shooter, baby.
Yeah. Yep. So he's still all bandaged up and everything, and so she screams and faints, and then like we cut to back in the lab. And it's Victor sort of like yelling at the, Shooter or the monster, because he was supposed to go up and kill Ro, but now they've got a dead girl on their hands.
Right, she wasn't supposed to be collateral damage, right?
Yeah,
they didn't really even care about her. Well, he takes something. He takes something off of presumably her body, and then he walks over to disposal. And as he's walking away, we pan and see she ain't got no head. He took her head.
Yeah. Identifying stuff. Yeah, he's got like a little
garbage disposal.
Yeah, I'm guessing it's like an acid bath or something. I don't know, but yeah,
maybe
he like yeah, could be. But either way, yeah, he's definitely disposing of stuff. It didn't seem like he even tried her eyes. Like I don't.
Okay, here's my counterpoint. You have your bride right there.
Right. Yeah. Right.
You're wasting parts. I mean, it's dark to say that, but this is a rich man because he can waste body parts like that.
Right.
When I was a kid, my mom made me take all the body parts. Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, and so we cut to like later on, and Ro and Mike are arguing because Judy's gone missing, and
then Shooter's missing, Judy's missing. What the hell's going on here?
Yeah, something weird's going on.
I love how Ro knows that something's really wrong. Did you catch how he knew?
Yeah.
She left the alimony check.
Oh yeah, that's what it was. I was like, I know it was. Yeah, there was a joke there.
Right.
And Mike does admit, he was like, yeah, I did kind of bother her last night, but surely she wouldn't have just left because of that. And Ro's like, yeah, she might have just been sick of both of us. Like, we're both jerks, and like she might have just been done dealing with our shit. And
well, at least he does ask the Baron. He's like, hey, Baron, what? Do you happen to know what happened to Judy last night?
Yeah, and of course he's like, yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen her. I'm not sure what's going on.
Yeah, Hans, did you see her?
Yeah. And then Carolyn arrives back. She's been out with the cameraman, Morgan. And she was like, yeah, we've been like scouting locations out there, and he found something that he thinks is going to be great. He wants me to climb up a tree, and he's going to film me in a tree.
Apple tree on a hill, right?
Yeah. And because Victor just can't not be creepy about everything. He's like, oh, so the thing with that tree is it's cursed, and it's said that anyone who sits in it will hang from it that very day.
Right, by nightfall. What? Yeah. That's a hell of a story. Where did we get that story?
Right.
Is that what happened to Justine? Dude, we're back to shit.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. And Ro's like, it doesn't. I don't need her in a tree anyway. That doesn't go with what we're doing. Like, I want something bright, shiny, and high tech.
Yeah.
He was like, Victor, how about can we film in front of your brand new reactor? That'll be perfect.
Nope. Victor's like, nope.
Yeah.
Can't be done.
Yeah, and he's like, hey, Gottfried, was that in the contract? And Gottfried's like, nope, it says the house in the crypt, but your lab is not in the contract. And Ro's like, come on, man. Like, I just got you like, that's the least you could do. And Victor is like, nah, man, fuck off. You're not going to my lab.
This is not part of the deal, my man.
Yeah. He's very adamant about it. And, he's like, if people, if you film it, people will, I've got patents that, there's things that people could steal from me. So, yeah, it's not happening.
Right. And of course, Ro's like, well, Morgan can film around that stuff. He's good with the camera, But, yeah, it's just not going to happen. Victor's like, nope. I'm not going to be bothered. I'm not going to be dissuaded. This is how it is, buddy.
Yeah. So Carolyn and Morgan go down to the crypt area to do some test shots down there.
Now, let me ask you this. So I may have heard this wrong, and I'm okay if I did. Just let me know. But doesn't Ro say, hey, Mike, let's go upstairs. I want to try some new fish.
I didn't catch that.
Do you think he meant microfiche, or do you think he meant actually like fish?
Yeah, I don't know.
Or did I hear it wrong? You tell me. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it would make more sense for it to be like lenses or film, but those aren't words that sound similar unless
Right.
yeah, I don't know.
Maybe I had a stroke at the time. I don't know.
I'm trying to think what else it could be, but yeah, so Mike and Ro go upstairs and Morgan and Carolyn go down. He's got her kind of like, he keeps having her, he's like, all right, back up a little further, keep backing up, and so she's like not walking forward, and he's like, okay, yeah, back down this hallway. That's going to be great. Like, I want to see you kind of creep out of the darkness.
Right. I want you to come from the darkness into the light.
Yeah. And then we see that the monster is, like, right behind her.
Okay, this is kind of funny, though. Because,
Yeah.
like, every time she gets in there, he's like, almost goes for her.
Yeah, and then she walks back into the light, and he's like, no, okay, let's do it again. That was almost perfect. Back up. And she does it again, and every time, yeah, the monster reaches for her, and then, but he never grabs her.
Yeah.
And she never sees him, which is,
Right.
I guess, also important.
Which, I wonder, I guess because she's backing up, right? She's
Yeah.
never turning to look at him.
And so she's like, all right, that was good. I'm going to head back upstairs. And Morgan's like, all right, I'm going to stay downstairs. He's got one of those little, like, I guess, do you call them viewfinders?
Yeah, viewfinder, rangefinder. Yeah, viewfinder. You're right. That's what it is.
And it's, like, it's a little thing he puts to his eye to kind of see what a shot's going to look like. So he's like, I'm going to keep looking for good shots. So he's just walking around, like, peeking through this little telescope thing to see, see shots and everything. And of course, then the monster comes out of the shadows and attacks him.
Well, yeah. Well, he also does like a Abbott and Costello bit where he's like, he tries to like back away from the monster, but he doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah, of course he gets killed, and then we cut to later on Victor looking at his eyes, and it seems like, oh, this will be perfect. Like, he's the cameraman, he's using the viewfinder, like his eyes are one of his strengths. But nope, unfortunately, he's the wrong blood type.
Yeah, hold on 1 second. As I understand it, and I could be wrong, I guess O is probably the universal donor, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. A is the universal receiver. Okay. Because I was almost pissed. Because I was like, wait a second, couldn't A go in anybody? But no, you're right. It could only go in A-type blood. So it would have to be O or O negative to go everywhere. I guess.
Yeah,
I don't know how organs work. I know how blood works.
Yeah, because he says it's like a rare A, which I didn't think A's were rare necessarily, but either way, yeah, something doesn't match up here. They're going to get rejected, so they go down the garbage chute as well.
Mm-hmm. And then we have the introduction of the inspector. This is our inspector for the movie, who strangely, despite being German, has like a New York, New Jersey accent.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's it seems like cops are always like, that's just like the accent for cops in movies.
I guess.
But yeah, so like Ro is talking to him, and he's like, Judy is missing, and now Morgan is missing. And they're kind of, they still are trusting that Shooter is away at his family, so they're not really kind of lumping him into the missing persons thing just yet.
Yeah. But of course, Victor is kind of like, well, Morgan said he was going into Frankfurt for a special lens, and no one's like, that's some weird shit that you just said. Like,
right.
Because shouldn't he have his lenses? Like, what special lens would he really want?
Yeah, why would he have not prepared if we're going to be out on location, have everything he needs?
Right.
And then also is like, and Judy, from my understanding, she was an emotionally disturbed young woman, and she's his ex-wife. There's obviously some relationship going on there.
But literally, no one's like, why do you have an excuse for literally every single person?
Yeah. Why are you the only one who seems to have all these alibis? No one else has heard anything.
Right. But of course, Ro's like, well, let's check the basement.
Yeah, because Carolyn's like, I was down there with him in the crypt. I bet that was the last place he was seen, I guess. Mm-hmm. And the cop's like on Victor. I mean, I guess Victor's a local, and these are all these Hollywood types coming in, and
highfalutin Hollywood types. While we here in our Frankfurt, Germany.
Yeah. And so he's like, all right, I'm sorry, Baron. Like, I hate to intrude, but this will make them happy. We'll. So they all go downstairs, they're kind of looking around, and we see the monster is in the lab, and he like hits the button to like open the door to come up.
Right.
And
and
Victor sees He's like, I'm gonna twist that head back real quick and close that door.
Right, just so no one notices.
Yeah, and then the inspector comes right over and he's like, I sincerely apologize for disturbing the dead down here. I don't see anything. I'm not gonna take up any more of your time. Mm-hmm. And Victor kind of like, he sees where the cops headed, and he's like, these showbiz people, they just live in this world of make believe.
Right, maybe you ought to check Mike. He seems very suspicious.
Yeah, the cop's like, I bet it was a publicity stunt. I heard there were rumors that the monster was back carrying people off. And then, they're like, Mike started those rumors. That was a publicity stunt. But the missing people is not. Right. And then, Victor hearing that, he's like, I'm going to sue you. You're, you're tarnishing my family's name by talking about our monster,
our good monster resurrecting name.
Yeah, this is definitely like the preemptive, like countersuit kind of thing that he's just like, I'm gonna get you into court before you get me into court, and it's gonna make me look like the good guy.
Yeah, but then of course as everyone leaves, Gottfried's like, Victor, there's a lot of people missing, buddy, and I want you to know I'm your friend, but a friend knows when another friend is lying.
And again, Victor's like, I told you about that commandant. But if you're still curious, if you really want to know, and Gottfried's like, yes, I really want to know what you're up to. And he's like, all right, if you insist, let's go down to my lab. I'll show you.
Yeah, Gottfried, I've got this cask of Amontillado.
Yeah, and like Gottfried, he's heeded the warnings so far, but here it's so obvious that like this is not the time.
Right.
And he's just like, yep, I'm gonna follow you down into your secret lab.
Yeah, I mean, even if your friend is like, you love them, but they're clearly going off the deep end, I don't see any time when you're like, yeah, I'm gonna trust them. They're legit this time.
Yeah. But yep, so they head down, and they they bump into the monster basically. Mm-hmm. And we get this really great shot where like the camera shows like a extreme close up of just like the monster's like empty eye sockets. You just have bandages with black holes in them, and then we see
Gottfried's face.
Yeah, you see Gottfried's eyes, and then we see the monster with eyes now that are Gottfried's.
Yeah. Well, not anymore, right?
Yeah, right. So then we see Victor is working, kind of getting, finishing some stuff up there.
Yeah, I mean, just to put a fine point on this, he basically grabs Gottfried's clothes and is like, and it goes down the incinerator chute.
Right. And then meanwhile, Ro and Mike are up in the crypt area. They're continuing their search. They know something's up, and they end up finding Morgan's little viewfinder. And they're like, he would not have left this. Something happened down here.
We got to go see the inspector.
Yeah. So Ro leaves to go talk to the cops, and then Victor comes back upstairs into like the living room area or whatever. And is like, hey, where's Ro? And Mike's like, he had
first he's like, Miss Hayes, how are you doing? And she's like, and I gotta go to bed, Dr. Frankenstein.
Right. Yeah, and Mike just kind of, he covers for Ro. Obviously is not like, he went to the cops. We're on to you. And so Victor's like, well, I guess while we're waiting on him to show back up, I saw you were looking through this old book. Are you interested in old books? I can show you my collection.
Yeah, and of course Mike's like, yeah. Oh, this has got to be worth like $10,000 easy. And Victor's like, yeah, if you like books, I've got some really cool coins. They're like really old, like family coins. Let me show them to you. Let me show you my hypnotizing coin.
Yep. So he knocks Ro out, and like, before with Shooter, we just saw him kind of hypnotize him, and then didn't really see what happened. But here we get like the full thing where he's like, all right, so he asks where Ro really is, and Mike says he went to the police, and then he's like, okay, so what you're gonna do is you're gonna go upstairs and tell Carolyn that Ro is waiting for her down in the crypt. Right. And tell her that he needs her down there right away, and then snaps and wakes him up.
Yeah, you'll remember nothing after this.
Yeah. So then we cut away to the police station where Ro is like, yeah, so I found this viewfinder, And not only that, but somewhere along the lines, I've also collected all these witnesses.
Right.
So
I've got the taxi driver. I've got the train station attendant. The taxi driver says, when was the last time you saw him? Just whenever I was driving him to Castle Frankenstein. All right, attendant man, when was the last time you saw him? Just when they came into town. See, nobody saw anybody leave.
yeah.
So Roe's got his shit together. He's got his evidence.
Yeah, and the inspector's like, all right, I'll come out in the morning. And he's like,
Nope.
dude, people are dropping.
Right.
You need to come now.
Right. I do like how it's like the provincial European cops like, we'll get to that tomorrow.
Yeah. At that point, we see Mike going up to see Carolyn. Carolyn does come downstairs and sees the monster, screams and faints. Mm-hmm. And then we get like sort of a montagey bit where we cut back and forth. We've got like Roe and the inspector in a car. They're speeding towards the castle.
Right, but this is kind of a wasted opportunity because it's like, oh, could they possibly go careening off the side? Could there be a wreck here? Could, all of their heroics? And it's, no, they're just speeding. That's it.
Yeah, it's just, they're just kind of driving, talking. I think it's rear projected, that's kind of intercut with shots of, the monster carrying Carolyn downstairs in that good old monster carrying fainted woman pose. Yeah. Then Roe and the inspector get to the castle. They're kind of searching, looking around for Carolyn. They don't see her.
Carolyn wakes up and we have a little bit of an emotional tug of war between her and Victor. Because Victor's like, bring her down here, shoot her. And she's like, no, take me upstairs, shoot her.
Yeah, and so it is really nice because, obviously Shooter is a very loyal butler. Like, he's done what he's been told with Victor, but he also has this loyalty to Carolyn. Like, she cared for him. She gave him this scarf. Like, he feels an affection towards her. So, yeah, she's like, take me upstairs. And, he does. Like, he turns and leaves. And, so Victor, he realizes, like, in his, listening.
The jig's up.
Yeah. So he's like, all right, I'm going to set the reactor to blow as like a threat. The monster comes bursting in and is like smashing stuff.
Right, but he actually cares enough. He's like, don't come any closer. You're going to be destroyed by this radiation. He's like, you stay back. It's cool. Just stay back.
But I think that's like, oh, okay, that's what needs. It's kind of the we belong dead kind of moment. So Shooter not only he like corners Victor, so they're both going to be killed by and it's steam. It's like, radioactive, like,
gas,
so like this steam kind of rolls out and, Victor and the creature are both presumably killed.
Well, we hear a moan of either pain or pleasure. Can't tell. It's like, like, well.
Yeah. And then we cut to just like sometime later on, we've got guys in like radioactive protective suits. Mm-hmm. And they're doing like testing, and they're like, okay, it's safe. The radioactivity is cleared out. Everybody can enter now. And so the police come in to look at the crime scene, and they cut open the bandages covering the monster's face that's been hidden this whole time.
It's Victor's. Dun. Yeah, okay. We knew.
Yeah, it's just Karloff without the scarred makeup. So he's a better, healthier version of Victor.
Right. So,
yep,
that's it.
Yeah, and I don't remember if it's Roe or the police, but they're like, oh, okay, so like Victor, this was his legacy. He wanted to create the monster in his own image to carry on the name of Frankenstein, which we pretty much knew from the beginning.
Right. But one of the cool things I think is at the end, Roe flips a switch and we start hearing Victor's own voice kind of give a narration to the whole story. It's like, this is how my documentary is going to start.
That's what it was. Yeah, so that's where we get the reveal that he so that it is really nice. Victor being gone but still kind of getting the last word.
Right. And you know what else we get? We get an abrupt ending.
Yeah.
Just that's it. We hear the last couple words from Victor and then the end.
The end. Yeah. And it's an interesting sort of curiosity because it's not like the best movie, it has, but like the movie making stuff in it is a nice touch, especially when you got like Karloff, who's like from this like long history of being a movie monster, to be in this movie about making monster movies.
Yeah.
And then also, in the Universal series, he started out as the creature and he got to be the doctor in a later movie. And in this, he's both.
Yeah, right, exactly. And that's pretty good. That's a pretty good cap.
Yeah, it really is.
And honestly,
I think he did more movies after this, but this does feel like a good sort of like wrap up of his career in a way.
Right. And honestly, it does feel like just more of a continuation of the Universal movies. Like, if you called this the Son of the Ghost of Frankenstein, I'd be like, yeah, okay, that scans.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the most Universal movie we've seen since we stopped Universal movies. Yeah, like, it definitely has that vibe to it. And especially, like, if you think of it in 58, like, you know, this would have been, you know, around the, like, Creature from the Black Lagoon. Like, it's, you know, that they were, Universal was in their, you know, like, getting back to monster movies at that. When were the creature movies? I feel like I'm maybe...
Those were in the mid to late 50s. So basically, like you said, about this time.
Yeah. So the first, Creature from the Black Lagoon was 54. So that it does feel like around that time period where it would have made sense if Universal was to go back to the Frankenstein well. It probably would have looked something like this.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's pretty good. It's nice to see Karloff just chew the hell out of that scenery.
Yeah. Yeah, there's like Karloff's career has different periods, and there were points where he was like trying to get away from genre stuff, and some of that stuff can be like frustrating because like you can like it's not working. Like, I mean, he's still a good actor, but it's like maybe not the right fit. Right. And here it feels like he's finally like he's not resisting. He's comfortable. Like he's not resenting the roles. And yeah, it's just he's leaning into what he does best. And you gotta love Karloff at his most Karloff.
Mm-hmm. And this is it, baby.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I feel like we could say we pretty much liked it.
Oh yeah.
Was it the most amazing Karloff film? No, not at all. But it was still pretty good.
Yeah, it's a fun movie.
Can we say check it out?
Yeah, I would definitely say. It's probably one of those. Like I've got a DVD of it, but I'm sure you can track this down without too much trouble somewhere.
Yeah, if you got some time, definitely check it out.
Yeah.
Well, Anthony, I think maybe we're in a little bit of a time loop. This kind of reminds me of something. Maybe we're in a Franken-warp. Dun dun dun. Put in like the reverse thing, because next week we're doing Frankenstein 1980.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. So we're gonna kind of keep this Frankenstein by the decades train going for a little bit here.
Yeah. We're the Franken-warp of 2023.
Yeah. And it's been a while since I've seen this. If I remember right, it is a very horny movie.
That would not surprise me.
that's about all I remember about it. So it'll be an interesting one.
Listen, we've watched actual porn.
Yeah. Yeah, we're not above anything at this point.
Nope. Not at all. All right, where can they find us, Anthony?
So you can, still the social media landscape's a mess, but Twitter is definitely the place we're most active. You can find us there, and Instagram, and Hive, and Tumblr. It's the Frankencast at all those places. You can find us on YouTube. You can email us at thefrankencast@gmail.com, and you can find us over on patreon.com/thefrankencast.
Yep, as always. I don't know if any interaction's good interaction now. Have we bypassed that legacy or that era of the internet?
I mean, so far all of our interactions have been good interactions, so we thank you for that. At least we haven't had any weirdos or any kind of like fights with people who think we're like too woke or something. It's been all good interactions so far, so that's good.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, well, in that case, to be continued.
Looks like you survived another episode. The Frankencast is a production of FCR Media. It's hosted by Anthony Bowman and Eric Velasquez. Follow us on Twitter at The Frankencast, or send us a letter at thefrankencast@gmail.com. Our cover art is by Amanda Keller. You can find her at Keller Illustrations on Instagram. Our theme music is by Vivek Abhishek. Thanks for listening.